Dear friends, this is episode number 51. In the last episode, we were dealing with Rule 1 of Order 33. We have covered explanation 1. Now, who is indigent person is that is covered by explanation 1. Then explanation 2. Any property which is acquired by a person after the presentation of his application for permission to sue as an indigent person and before the decision of the application shall be taken into account in considering the question whether or not the applicant is an indigent person. So at the time when presentation of the application for permission to sue as an indigent person, the plaintiff was possessed of only the property which is the subject matter of the suit. That cannot be taken into account for the purpose of computing the means of the plaintiff. Now, the application is presented. The necessary inquiry has to be made, a report has to be obtained from the revenue authorities and all those things. The objections which the state government, the objections which the defendant may raise and the state government may raise, all those things are to be considered. And then it takes time. Meanwhile, the plaintiff inherited a very substantial property, which is not the subject matter of the suit. So he is possessed of means. Or the plaintiff won a lottery. The court fee payable is rupees 1 lakh. He is incapable of paying it. Other than the property which is the subject matter of the suit, he does not have any other property. He does not have any bank deposit, he does not have any money, he does not have any job, and therefore he is not in a position to pay the court fee. But during the pendency of the application to sue as an indigent person, he won a lottery. He got 1 crore. Should he not pay the court fee? Or is it the state of affairs as on the date of application alone should be considered? No. During the application, before it is disposed of, all the state of affairs that is available shall be considered. So, any property acquired by a person after presentation of the application to sue as an indigent person and before the decision shall be taken into account in considering the question whether or not the applicant is an indigent person. Explanation 3. Where the plaintiff sues in a representative capacity, the question whether he is an indigent person shall be determined with reference to the means possessed by him in such capacity. Not in his personal capacity, but in the capacity as a person who is involved in the representative suit. This is, now you may see some of the decisions which are relevant. AR 1972 Supreme Court 2508 Vijay Pradap versus Dukh DUKH Harin HARIN Nath. A suit by a person claiming to be an indigent person commences from the moment of presentation of the application as required under Rules 2 and 3. Commences on presentation of the application as required under 2 and 3. What is 2? Contents of the application. 3. Presentation of the application. From that date onwards. I will refer to some of the provisions in the Limitation Act as well. Now please see 2001 2 KLT 732 equivalent citation, it is a Supreme Court judgment. It is, yes, 2001 5 SCC. 2001 5 SCC 22. The word person occurring in Order 33 Rule 1 is not limited to natural person. Union Bank of India versus Kaders International Construction Limited. Please go through that judgment. Now, 2007 1 KLT. 2007 1 KLT 664. There the plaintiff filed the suit as an indigent person. Apart from the suit property, he has got another property. But he says that property which is not involved in the present suit is involved in another suit, and therefore that cannot be taken into account for the purpose of computing the means of this person and to assessing whether he is an indigent person or not. In short, his contention is that he has a property, but it is involved in another suit, therefore don't take into account for this suit for considering the question whether he is an indigent person or not. Can such a contention be accepted? On the face of explanation 1, no, cannot be accepted. That is decided there. 2007 1 KLT 664. He is not entitled to claim any exclusion from assessment of his means and thereby to decide the question of indigency. Then 2006 4 KLT 2006 4 KLT 1006. There, a very brief, short decision. Question was this. You please, I will say the dates. The application to file the suit as an indigent person was filed on 22/5/99. 22/5/99. That application was allowed on 22/7/2002. It took 3 years to consider the application. And that petition was converted into suit, regular suit on 26/10/2002. 26/10/2002. So suit was filed on 22/5/99 and it was converted into a suit on 26/10/2002. Suit was decreed. Defendants filed an appeal. Suit was decreed with interest. So for the purpose of filing an appeal, the decree amount together with interest calculated up to the date of decree of the trial court below shall be the subject matter of the appeal. So if the claim is for 10 lakhs, interest is also awarded. That interest comes to say 12 lakhs, 2 lakhs. So total 12 lakhs. That will be the subject matter of the appeal and court fee has to be calculated on that basis. Interest calculated up to the date of decree of the court which is appealed against. So here, since the application was converted into a suit only on 26/10/2002, what the defendants did for filing an appeal was that they calculated the interest from that date onwards and not from the date on which the application to sue as an indigent person was presented, that is in 99. Question was whether interest is to be calculated from 99 the date of presentation of the application, or 2002, the date on which it was converted into a suit. It was answered saying that interest is to be calculated from the date on which the application to sue as an indigent person was presented. Why it is so? Please see Section 3 of the Limitation Act, 3.2, which says, for the purpose of this Act, a suit is instituted in the ordinary case when the plaintiff is presented to the proper officer. In the case of a pauper, when his application for leave to sue as a pauper is made. That is the crucial date for the purpose of the Limitation Act. So whether the suit is within the period of limitation or not, suppose for filing the suit the period of limitation is 12 years. It did not expire on the date on which the application for filing the suit as an indigent person. Then it is not barred. It is not the date on which it is converted into a suit. Or if it is dismissed, that application is dismissed, the court fee is paid on a subsequent date. It is not the date of payment of court fee. Date of presentation of the application, that is relevant. And also, along with this, you have to also see Section 13 of the Limitation Act. 13 of the Limitation Act. In computing the period of limitation prescribed for any suit or appeal in any case where an application for leave to sue or appeal as a pauper has been made and rejected, the time during which the applicant has been prosecuting in good faith his application for such leave shall be excluded. And the court may, on payment of the court fee prescribed for such suit or appeal, treat the suit or appeal as having the same force and effect as if the court fee has been paid in the first instance. Exclusion of time during which the application was pending. And on payment of the court fee, suppose the application is filed and it is rejected. That means the plaintiff, if he wants to continue the suit, he has to pay the necessary court fee. The period during which the application was pending shall be excluded for the purpose of computation of the period of limitation. Now also there is one more rule in Order 33 itself. Rule 15A, which says the suit shall be deemed to have been instituted on the date on which the application for permission to sue as an indigent person was presented. Where a case's application is rejected, we will come to Rule 15 later. Application to sue as an indigent person is rejected. And the court may grant time to pay the court fee. Because court fee has to be paid. Suppose the court fee payable is 1 lakh. He said that he is a pauper. An application was made to that effect. The matter was being inquired into. After some time, say 1 year or 6 months, it was held by the court that he is not a pauper. He is not an indigent person. Then what will happen? His suit will not lie unless he pays the court fee. The court may grant time to pay the court fee. He pays the court fee. Then what will happen? It shall be deemed to have been. The suit shall be deemed to have been instituted on the date on which the application for permission to sue as an indigent person was presented. In which contingency? On payment of the court fee. So when we read Section 3.2 of the Limitation Act, Section 13 of the Limitation Act, and Rule 15A of Order 33, the position is very, very clear. Yes. Now 1A. Enquiry into the means of an indigent person. Every enquiry into the question whether or not a person is an indigent person shall be made in the first instance by the chief ministerial officer of the court, unless the court otherwise directs, and the court shall adopt the report of such officer as its own finding, and may make itself make an enquiry into the question. Along with this application rule, along with 1A, you have to also see rule 3, presentation of the application. Notwithstanding anything contained in these rules, the application shall be presented to the court by the applicant in person. We will come to rule 3. So suppose I want to file a suit after payment of full court fee. I engage a lawyer. I need not go to the court for the purpose of presentation of the plaint. I can engage another person, I can engage my lawyer, I can engage the advocate's clerk. Advocate's clerks are also permitted to file it. Or the advocate can go, or anybody else can go. My presence, nobody will ask whether the plaintiff is present or not. No. Or the plaintiff is to be examined now. No. It is not necessary. But when a person is filing a suit as an indigent person, he shall present the plaint in person. He shall appear before court, before the office of the court, appear before the chief ministerial officer, present the plaint. And he is entitled to get the necessary data from him. What are all the properties which you are having, this and that. All these things shall be scheduled to the application, which the following rules will make it clear. But he can also put questions to the plaintiff, whether he is having this property, that property, and all those things. And he will file a report, make an enquiry into the question, and that report will be adopted by the court. Apart from this, an enquiry by the revenue authorities will also be made, that is else. So whenever an indigent suit is to be filed, see, I do not know whether I should say it. Say, suppose a lady is a plaintiff. She says that she has no income, no property, nothing. What are all the items which are available to her? See, only the necessary wearing apparel and a gold chain having half a sovereign of gold, nothing else. She comes to the court, a pakka villager. Probably she may be having only that much, half a sovereign. But when coming to the court, she may borrow the ornaments from her neighbors and come with all full set of ornaments. The advocates or advocate's clerk or both will say that don't wear all those things. When you present the plaint, appear before the chief ministerial officer, remove all those things. That the advocates have to take care. I am not saying that you must do something which is not true. So this wearing of these ornaments is not true. It is not her ornaments, but which she has borrowed from her neighbors for the purpose of going to the court. It is a big event for her. Therefore she comes with all dignity, wearing all the ornaments. So there is nothing wrong in directing her. This does not belong to you. Why should you have it and create trouble? Because the chief ministerial officer says, all right, you have shown in the schedule that you are having a gold ornament weighing only half a sovereign. But you are wearing gold ornaments weighing at least 25 sovereigns. That will be added in the report. Then the court may reject the application. If 25 sovereigns of gold is enough for paying the court fee, the court may reject it. So that danger is there. So that applies in the case of this on the practical aspect of it. I am not saying that something which is wrong should be done. See, in maintenance cases, what happens? Maintenance case, the wife claims maintenance from her husband. She says that she is living in utter penury, she has no money, nothing. But she comes to the court and appears with all very costly dresses, very valuable silk sari, ornaments and all those things. She comes and appears as a witness before court. So the advocates will say even previously, say, all right, you are claiming maintenance of 500 rupees or 1000 rupees, but you are appearing in court with all these attire. Therefore, please don't do it. Come in a very sober dress. Unless the advocates do it, say they will be inviting trouble. So these are all the tips which the advocate clerks and all concerned will give to the litigants. At times, I said about the practical aspect. I did not suggest anything that you should do something illegal or improper. No, only proper things. So that inquiry 1A, contents of the application. Every application for permission to sue as an indigent person shall contain the particulars required in regard to the plaintiffs in suit, a schedule of any movable or immovable property belonging to the applicant, with the estimated value thereof, shall be annexed thereto, and it shall be signed and verified in the manner presented for the signing and verification of pleadings. This is a very important thing, very, very important thing. You must make a complete disclosure of your assets and properties and other things which are available with you. Then only the court can be invited to arrive at a finding. Look at this state of affairs. I am not in a position to pay the court fee. I am not in a position to raise funds to pay the court fee. You suppress it, that alone is sufficient to reject the application. You suppress the properties which are available to you, and it is disclosed later in evidence that you have suppressed it. Then the court will mercilessly reject it. So what the application should contain? A schedule of any movable or immovable property belonging to the applicant, with the estimated value thereof, should be stated. So a schedule will be there. What are all the movable items? What are the immovable properties? It will be scheduled. See, care must be taken by all concerned that all these items are, you must have an interaction with the litigant, with the client, your client, and get all the necessary details. Otherwise, tomorrow if an inspection or inventory is made at the instance of the defendant, and the plaintiff's house is inspected by a commissioner, and he finds that the articles worth lakhs and lakhs of rupees is lying there, then the court will not believe you. Believe that party. And therefore it is likely that his application may be rejected. So don't take that risk. Get all the necessary details from the client and show it honestly in the application. If the court comes to the conclusion that he is not an indigent person, he has to pay the necessary court fee. That's all. But see, suppose a lady files a suit. She says that she is not in a position to pay the necessary court fee. It is alleged by the other side. No. Her husband is a very big businessman. He makes crores of rupees. And therefore, she has to pay the court fee. Can it be computed for the purpose of means, for the purpose of deciding the indigency or otherwise of the applicant? No. There is a decision on that. 1992 1 KLT. 92 1 KLT 725. 92 1 KLT 725. Resleth, RESLETH versus Indian Bank. So the husband's income and all those things, whether he is having properties and all those things, is not relevant for the purpose of deciding the indigency or otherwise of the plaintiff who has filed the application to permit her to file the suit as an indigent person. Now, schedule of movable and immovable property. on the practical side of it, I have seen something in the trial court. See, it was I did not like that practice. I will say this. Mobiles. Item 1. Dhoti. 2. Value 200 rupees. All will be false sometimes. Dhoti 2. Shirt 2. Value 300 rupees. Chappal 10 rupee or 50 rupees. At that time it was only 10 rupees. Underwear 2. Value. And if they are ladies, their undergarments, all these details will be shown. And there will be, ultimately, when it comes to the enquiry, there will be great suppression of real facts that there are enough properties for her or him to pay the court fee. But when she makes or he makes the application, she will make it appear that she is having only this much. 2 dhotis, 2 shirt, 1 chappal. This is not correct. This method I have seen in the trial court. And every item wise, everything, shawl, this and that, all will be. See, there is a danger also. When an appeal came, an indigent person in the High Court, see, there was a joke. I invited the court's attention to the more properties and all those things. And incidentally, I may point out, this is ridiculous. And see, filing a schedule containing all these unnecessary items. Is it not sufficient? Necessary wearing apparel, 1,000 rupees. That is enough. Because nobody is going to take an account of what, whether you are having 2 shirt or 3 shirt. See, a disclosure of your assets is enough. So my personal opinion, don't copy it, don't say that, don't quote me also. This is quite my personal opinion. The dignity demands that it is sufficient. Dresses, value. You may indicate shirts, pants, etc., etc. And all the necessary items. This much. You need not mention, see, underwear, brassiere, this and that, and make it a schedule so clumsy. And it so happened. So I pointed out all these items are shown. Is it necessary? The judge also smiled. He was also opinion that it is sufficient if the general description is made. Then I pointed out, look at these all items which are specifically mentioned in the schedule. But look at it. This man has no underwear. It is not shown in the schedule. So if you show 100 specific items and the absence of something becomes very relevant. So I am saying on the practical aspect for the consideration of lawyers, this is only a quite personal opinion, that it is not necessary to see so minute details of all your personal belongings and this and that. Not necessary. But the disclosure must be true and correct. See, whenever you make so much of this much details and all those things, it is clear that you are going to suppress something. It is not necessary. This is quite a personal opinion. Don't take it otherwise. So there is a schedule of mobile and immobile property. Now, what is the danger if the plaintiff omits to mention something there? See, 96.2 KLT 363. 96.2 KLT 363. Matthew versus State of Kerala. When the applicant does not disclose an asset held by him in his application, whatever be the reason, the application is liable to be rejected in terms of Order 33 Rule 5A of the Code. 5A. 5 says rejection of application. The court shall reject an application for permission to sue as an indigent person where it is not framed and presented in the manner prescribed by rules 2 and 3. That is a ground to reject the application. What is contained in rules 2 and 3? You should file a schedule of movable and immobile. You have not done it. So that is a ground. Presentation of application, rule 3. The application shall be presented to the court by the applicant in person unless he is exempted from appearing in court, in which the application may be presented by an authorized agent who can answer all material questions relating to the application and who may be examined in the same manner as a party represented by him might have been examined had such party attended in person. So, he is expected to appear in person, but if a person is exempted from appearing in court, there are so many persons who are exempted from appearing in court, such a person, then an authorized agent can go there. But that authorized agent must be able to answer all the relevant questions which may be put by the chief ministerial officer to assess the situation and also to ascertain the facts which are mentioned in the application, the correctness or otherwise of all the facts. Provided that where there are more plaintiffs than one, it shall be sufficient if the application is presented by one of the plaintiffs. Personal appearance by there are 3 plaintiffs. It is sufficient if any one of the plaintiffs go there and present the plaint. That is enough. Examination of the applicant, where the application is in proper form and duly presented. The court may, if it thinks fit, examine the applicant or his agent when the applicant is allowed to appear by the agent regarding the merits of the claim and the property of the applicant. He can be examined in court also. If presented by agent, the court may order the applicant to be examined by commission. Even that can be done. Where the application is presented by an agent, the court may, if it thinks fit, order that the applicant be examined by a commission in the manner in which the examination of an absent witness may be taken. So the court can appoint a commission. All right, he will be examined. And what is of importance is that the court must ascertain whether this person is really an indigent person or whether he is suppressing material facts and evading payment of court fee. That is a matter to be inquired into. Then comes rejection of application under Rule 5. Rejection of application is there. I will deal with it in detail. Then procedure for at the hearing, then dispaupering, all those things are there which will come. Now we have to deal with from Rule 5 onwards. We will do it in the next episode. Thank you.